97 days. That number alone should stop you in your tracks. For nearly 100 days, Nancy Guthrie has been gone, and her family has been living in the kind of silence that slowly swallows a person whole. Then, on a quiet stretch of Tucson desert, a camera caught something white poking out of the dirt. Within minutes, police tape was up, officers were swarming, and the entire country held its breath. But what investigators found next wasn't what anyone expected. And it changed where this case is heading in ways nobody saw coming. It started with a man walking through the desert with a camera. Alec Weisapel runs a small YouTube channel and had spent weeks doing his own amateur searches for clues in the Nancy Guthrie case. On the morning of May 7th, near North Craycroft Road and East River Road, his lens landed on something pale pushing up through the soil. He stopped. He called the police. Within 10 minutes of a Fox News reporter arriving on scene, yellow tape was already going up. Officers were photographing the dirt. The spot sat roughly 7 miles from Nance's home. For a family that had been praying for 3 months, this felt like the moment they had always feared. One officer told Weisapel on camera that the area was a historical burial site and that the bone appeared to be at least 50 years old. That single sentence sent the live stream into chaos. Viewers flooded in with questions. Could this be her? Within hours, every major outlet in the country had picked up the story. And then came a statement that stopped everyone cold. Tucson police confirmed the bone was human, but classified the discovery as a prehistoric anthropological investigation. The University of Arizona's anthropology department was called in. The Pima County medical examiner was involved. This was not a criminal matter. A second spokesperson confirmed there was no reason to connect the bone to Nancy. The area sits deep in ancestral Hohokam territory, land that local tribes have long called the ground of those who came before. Remains surface here regularly as development pushes further into the basin. The bone was almost certainly ancient. The relief was immediate. But it was short-lived. Because while one fear was put to rest, a far more unsettling question began to surface. If this meant nothing, then where is Nancy? And why are investigators now whispering about something much darker? The day before that bone was found, something odd happened on live television. Savannah Guthrie quietly walked off the Today Show set 90 minutes into the broadcast. Her co-anchor Craig Melvin told viewers she had to leave a little early and would be back the next day. It sounded routine. But for people watching this case closely, it was the second time it had happened in just weeks. The first time, Hoda Kotb appeared after a commercial break with no explanation given. Now, on May 6th, Savannah was gone again. At exactly 8:30 in the morning, 30 minutes before the show was even set to end. A source quickly told Page 6 her exit had nothing to do with her mother. Just an appointment, they said. But here is what the public was never supposed to find out. An NBC insider told the Daily Mail that the network had built a private code phrase around Savannah. If a producer tells her she is needed off set, that is the signal. Something has happened in her mother's case. She would be pulled mid-segment if necessary, walked into a private room, and told the news, while another anchor broke the story on air simultaneously. Former FBI agent Jennifer Korfendaffer posted publicly that every time Savannah unexpectedly leaves the show, she feels a flicker of hope that something has finally broken open. Social media erupted. Was NBC quietly preparing for the worst kind of news? And there was one detail nobody could explain. That same morning, one of Savannah's old Tucson high school teachers happened to be standing on the Today Plaza holding a handmade sign. Savannah later thanked her on Instagram with heart emojis. She never mentioned why she had left. Either this was just an appointment, or the network has been rehearsing a moment it hopes never comes. Because the deeper investigators have dug into the night Nancy disappeared, the more terrifying the picture becomes. On May 6th, News Nation aired a special that introduced a theory disturbing enough to reshape the entire investigation. 3 of the country's most respected criminal profilers sat down with host Brian Anton and laid out what they believe really happened. Dr. and Burgess, the legendary Boston College professor who helped build the FBI's behavioral science unit, paused mid-sentence and said something chilling. The masked man captured on Nance's doorbell camera may have already been eliminated. When asked by whom, she answered quietly, "The boss." She believes this was a meticulously planned operation, and the man at the door was simply a disposable piece of something much larger. Dr. Gary Brucato went further. He called the doorstep footage amateur hour, pointing to how the suspect held his weapon, tucked into his waistband with no holster, a style known as Mexican carry. Brucato argued the man was hired, then removed from the picture to cut off any trail leading back to whoever orchestrated this. He described the masked man as someone who, if still alive, would lead investigators through a web of connections straight to a person hiding in plain sight. Dr. Casey Jordan estimated the suspect was in his late 20s, almost certainly a local, and probably long gone from the area. She also flagged something investigators had been quietly sitting on for weeks. The front door and back door were used by different people. The suspect approached from the front while the back doors had been propped open. That detail alone suggests at least two people working in coordination. Retired FBI agent Jennifer Korfendaffer studied the 3-second clip frame by frame. What she noticed has unsettled everyone following this case. The masked man had his head down and walked directly toward the camera. He knew exactly where it was. That is not the behavior of a random burglar. That is someone who had either cased the house beforehand or been given precise instructions. If she is right, whoever took Nancy was never a stranger. And if Brucato is right, the one man who could identify the real architect of this crime may already be gone, buried somewhere out in the Sonoran Desert. While profilers were dropping bombshells on cable, a quieter but equally explosive crisis was erupting inside the Pima County Sheriff's Department. On May 5th, FBI Director Kash Patel appeared on a podcast and made an accusation that shook the investigation to its foundation. He claimed the FBI had been locked out of the Guthrie case for the first 4 days. He said the Bureau had a plane sitting on the ground in Tucson, ready to fly DNA evidence directly to Quantico the very night it was collected. Instead, Sheriff Chris Nanos had the hair sample sent to a private lab in Florida, where it sat untouched for 11 weeks before finally reaching the FBI laboratory in mid-April. 11 weeks. In a case where every hour matters. Sheriff Nanos pushed back. His department insisted coordination with the FBI had begun immediately. But the damage was done. Now the Pima County Board of Supervisors was preparing a vote that could remove Nanos from office entirely. The stated reason was not the Guthrie case. It was something older and far more damaging. In a sworn deposition for an unrelated lawsuit, Nanos had denied ever being suspended as an officer. Records uncovered by the Arizona Republic told a different story. 8 suspensions during his early career at the El Pozo Police Department. The incidents included beating a handcuffed suspect badly enough to require hospitalization, threatening a witness, off-duty gambling, and making a false statement. He resigned in 1982 rather than face termination. The man running the most watched missing persons case in America was simultaneously fighting for his own career. And that fight may be exactly why this investigation has felt so paralyzed from the start. While all of that was playing out publicly, a quieter and more painful story was circulating inside the family itself. An investigative reporter named Jonathan Lee Riches posted a series of claims in early May that spread rapidly through true crime circles. According to a source he described as close to the family, Nance's daughter Annie had asked her mother for money before the disappearance. Nancy had said no. Riches then added something even more pointed, that someone had already been planning to move into Nance's home. He never named that person. International Business Times UK covered the allegations but was clear that none of it could be independently verified. The whispers grew louder when former News Nation host Ashley Banfield publicly named Annie's husband, Tommaso Cioni, as someone who should be considered a suspect. Tommaso was the last known person to see Nancy alive. He had driven her home and personally walked her to the door, watching her go inside before leaving around 9:50 that evening. Megyn Kelly later reported that Savannah was furious about Banfield's comments. Korfendaffer stepped in to defend Tommaso firmly, saying there was nothing in his physical appearance, his mannerisms, or the way he moved that connected him to the masked man on the porch. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has publicly cleared the family. But Sheriff Nanos, in a separate interview, said something that has haunted the case ever since. When asked which family members had been ruled out, he said simply, "Nobody is cleared." And those 2 words have been echoing ever since. Because the rumors keep circling back to one uncomfortable place. A border 60 miles south of Nance's front door. Retired Arizona Department of Public Safety Lieutenant Dave Smith told Fox News Digital that in any major crime, his first instinct is always to look toward Mexico. His reasoning is direct. It offers shelter for criminals and makes it nearly impossible for American law enforcement to follow up. He pointed specifically to the masked man's weapon, tucked in with no holster, the same Mexican carry style, and to the geographic reality that Nance's home sits just 60 miles from Nogales. Smith suggested there may have been a deliberate effort to keep federal agents out of the investigation early on, because the moment international transport becomes a possibility, the case becomes federal jurisdiction. There is one detail about Nance's own history that makes this thread harder to ignore. Her late husband Charles Guthrie died of a heart attack at 49 during a mining trip to Hermosillo, in the Mexican state of Sonora, in June of 1988. The Guthrie family already lost someone in Mexico. Now that same country may be at the center of losing another. In April, 2 ransom letters arrived anonymously at TMZ. One claimed Nancy was already dead. The other claimed the writer had personally seen her alive, held by kidnappers in the Mexican state of Sonora. Mexico's security secretary publicly stated there was no indication Nancy had been brought across the border. But the letters kept coming. A Mexican volunteer organization called Madres Buscadoras de Sonora, Searching Mothers of Sonora, flew to Tucson in late February to help with the search. Founded by a mother named Ceci Flores Amenta, the group has helped locate over 5,000 missing persons using shovels, pickaxes, and a fierce presence on social media. The Pima County Sheriff's Department denied them search permits, saying the work was best left to professionals. The Madres distributed flyers in Spanish anyway and walked quietly through neighborhoods near Nance's home. They left Tucson empty-handed. But they did not leave silently. And the question they asked still hangs over everything. If American investigators won't look south, who will? Sunday, May 10th was the first Mother's Day Savannah Guthrie had ever spent without her mother. She marked it with an Instagram post that has been shared millions of times. The reel showed Nancy laughing, holding her grandchildren, standing in her sunlit kitchen. The caption was raw and simple. Mother, daughter, sister, Noni. The family misses her with every breath. They will never stop looking. She asked anyone with information to call the FBI tip line and reminded the public that tips can be made anonymously, while still qualifying for the reward. That reward now stands at $1.2 million. The family personally contributed $1 million of that, and separately donated $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The FBI Phoenix office alone has received over 13,000 tips. The Sheriff's Department has fielded nearly 18,000 calls. Just before Mother's Day, someone left an anonymous note among the flowers and candles outside Nance's home. It was addressed to whoever took her. It said that person's own mother would be ashamed. It demanded they bring Nancy home, or at least tell the family where she was, so they could spend the day together. Elizabeth Smart appeared on CNN and refused to let the family lose hope. Smart was taken at 14 and came home after 9 months. She reminded viewers that J.C. Duggard survived 18 years in captivity. The 3 women held by Ariel Castro endured over a decade before walking free. Smart said clearly, "Until we know otherwise, we have to keep looking." The final thread of forensic hope sits in a laboratory in San Francisco. A company called Astria Forensics, known for cracking the Gilgo Beach case by pulling DNA from rootless hair strands, is believed to be analyzing a mixed DNA sample recovered from inside Nance's home. Sheriff Nanos has said separating those genetic strands could take 6 more months. 6 months feels like a lifetime when an 84-year-old woman is missing her daily heart medication and someone out there knows exactly where she is.